Here we are. Welcome to yet another amazing conversation during our From Nothing to Anything, a conference to celebrate deschooling and unschooling. Welcome to this conversation called What is Deschooling? What is that? What does that even mean? Well, you have the best one here. She is the queen of deschooling. There is none higher. My good girlfriend Tyra is here to share with us. Tyra and I have shared the stage on many different clubhouse talks, many different Zoom talks, many different whatever talks about deschooling. And today Tyra is going to share with us what is deschooling, how do you start, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end. So Tyra, I will hand it over to you. However you want to do it, if you want to guide people to put their questions in the chat, you're welcome to do that. And let's see if we can bring question and answers at around 2:15 or so. So we can do that until about 2:30.
I'm sorry about that. I had my fan on. Somebody said I had a fan on.
It's all
Sorry.
right. All
Is
good.
that better?
Yep, we can hear you just
Okay.
fine. So go ahead, Tyra. What is deschooling?
Well, I mean, Robin told you all the ins and outs and even beyond. But simply put, for me, deschooling is going from one type of learning to another. And it seems easy, but it is not. Well, first of all, my name is Tyra. I have a grown unschooler. um, we had started our homeschooling journey about 9 years ago, and I kind of am like Karima and Robin. When I started because, well, first of all, my daughter was being tested a lot, and she became depressed, and I was losing my child. And she loved school, and she was just not wanting to go. And that is so unlike my daughter. And I knew a change had to happen. So I took her out of public school. But what I did is I bought public school home, and I knew nothing about deschooling whatsoever. Never heard of it, even though I did a lot of researching on homeschooling. I just thought I would repeat what I already knew and what she was used to, what my mom did, what my grandma did. So, but that didn't work. My child was introduced to art by my husband. I always blame my husband, Karima. He opened up her mind to a possibility she never thought of. And once he opened her mind to art, could not shut it. Not that I wanted to. I just wanted some more of her to do what I wanted her to do. I know that that's what we do as parents. I know what's best. You have got to do and study and work the way I want you to, because that is the way to success. But what I did not know was that that wasn't the only way to success, because I went to public school. I went to college, several. I never finished because I honestly did not have a passion. So, I thought every time I went to school, is this something I want to do forever? And it was always no. And so I found something else. So why would I want to repeat that? So then I learned about deschooling. Never heard of it. And on my journey to find a way to change, once again, I changed from public school. Now I had to change from traditional way of schooling because I wasn't working for my daughter anymore. We were fighting. I was saying every so couple of weeks, "Oh, I'm sending you back to public school." No, and I was not. But I was just so frustrated. And she was frustrated. The atmosphere was horrible. The environment was not very good for learning. And I had to come to terms with that. What else can I do? And my husband was even, what are you going to do? Public school didn't work. You brought her home. Homeschooling is not working, that traditional sense of scheduling. And, we start at 9 o'clock and we end at 4. Mind you, I had just one child. And I even bought the iron-ons to put on t-shirts for my daughter because I was going to have a uniform. She was like, no. So in 5th grade, I took my daughter out of public school. We homeschooled traditionally for a couple of years. When that wasn't working, I found out about deschooling and unschooling at about the same time. Um, I followed Karima and other people on Facebook, and they talked about deschooling. And so once I looked into it, it made sense because we went from the public school way of doing things to doing things at home looks completely different. And I didn't know how to deal with that. And so I was thinking about changing the way I was doing our homeschooling. And I didn't tell my daughter. What I did is I just woke up one morning and told her, um, you can do whatever you want. You can learn whatever you want. And she was like, oh my gosh, what are you saying? She was so used to getting up every day and she has a schedule. And I was like, no, you can get up when you want, whenever you want. You can learn whatever you want, go do it. And she just went, I've never seen her want to learn everything. While she was learning everything, I was hiding, right? I went into my bedroom and shut the door and did my work in my bedroom because I didn't want to see her being free to learn. That makes no sense when I say that out loud. But I'd never seen it. And I just didn't know how. Well, I was like, what am I doing? Am I really letting my child just do whatever she wants? Oh my gosh. So I just shut the door every day, but my daughter would come in and be like, Mom, guess what I learned? She would tell me about all these things, about the weather, about the world, about cooking, she would just tell me all of these cool and interesting things. And then finally, I came out of my room of hiding because I didn't want to see her being free. But what I saw was inside she had this light. She was just like, I am enjoying life now. This is the best thing ever. And so when I came out and I moved all my stuff back out where it usually is out, in our front room. And I watched her and I observed what she was learning. And I talked to her. I said, you know what, Zoe, why I said that I wanted you to do, to learn whatever is that I am deschooling. We're in this deschooling phase, and I just said, just talk to her. That's like the number one thing that I should have done from the beginning is told her what I was going to do. But I'm the parent. I remember being in one of Robin's talks about our egos because I'm the parent. I know best. I'm always going to be my child's mother and her guide, but I didn't want to be such a tyrant about what she did and how she thought. And, I'm just going to go and do, and this is what I'm going to do for you. That's what I did. And I should have just sat her down and said, look, this is what I'm thinking. Traditional homeschool wasn't working. I'm thinking about deschooling and going into unschooling. And once I sat down and told her, what I was going to do, she understood and she was like, okay. And so I started watching her. I started observing her. And that's another thing. When you are in deschooling, observe your child. What do they naturally want to learn about? And I wrote it down. And she always she said that I was stalking her because I'd be peeking around the corner, like what is she doing? And and taking pictures. Seriously, I would take pictures. And I'd write it down and she would just look at me and I ask her questions and then I'd just leave. And she was like, okay, this is the process my mom has to go through. So But I still had the mindset of she has to be learning this, she has to be learning that, and I'm still like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? And that's another thing within the deschooling process is the mindset shift. That's what Robin talked about. That is a thing that has to happen. That has to happen, or you will always doubt yourself. You will always be asking, what am I doing? What is my child learning? Are they okay? That mind shift change is the hardest thing that I've ever done. Like Robin said, deschooling is not easy, and it is for the children, because the children have to have that time to process from being in public school to being home and learning at home. It's completely different. It's so they have to have time to process that. On the other hand, parents have had nothing but public school, so that takes longer, a lot longer. And they said that you should deschool 1 month for every year that your child um, has been in school. That's fine for other people. That's like a marker for you to start at. No, deschooling is an ongoing process. I could honestly say we started when Zoe was about 11. I could honestly say I was done with deschooling when my daughter was 16 years old. Why I say that is because by the time she was 16, and she told me what she was going to do and what she had time for and how she was going to do this, I was like, okay. And there was no other feeling of, oh, she's not learning this or she's not learning that. It was a feeling of, I know everything's going to be okay. That's when I knew I was going to be all right, and that I didn't, my mind had completely shifted. But that's like 5-6 years later. So you have to give yourself time to process. It's going to take time. I mean, some people can do it um, quicker than that. I know my daughter, once I told her about deschooling, and she was like, school's over. The school doesn't even exist. She was immediate. It was immediate freedom. It was immediate. I'm just learning everything. And then there may be some kids that maybe like, I need you to tell me what to do. And that's okay, because they are not used to having autonomy. And so they may need help. I needed help, and my daughter helped me. I would ask her, or, well, I think you may need to do this or do that. And she would always say, Mom, I'm going to be fine. I'm fine. So it was like her telling me it's going to be okay. That helped me because my daughter is not a child that liked school. She loved school before we moved to a whole nother state. And that caused her just to dislike being in a classroom. And once we started homeschooling and once we started unschooling, she was meant for unschooling. That just freed her to be what she knew she wanted to be. And so along our path, along our journey, um, my daughter had the confidence to choose the things that she needed to be successful along her own journey. And so as a parent, I had to get with it. I had to believe in that as well. I had to let her know that her decisions for her own life were valuable to me as well, were important to me, and that she had my support 100%. But, along the way, it was not easy. So the one thing that I did that really helped me to get, to stop climbing the walls with worry is I began playing games with her. We started game schooling. Game schooling is you intentionally buy games to teach a certain educational skill. I didn't tell her that, but in my mind, we were learning something, you know. So when I introduced, we were already a family that played games anyway. You know, I played games as a kid, and so we played games anyway. We played, like, you know, Monopoly and Yahtzee and different things like that. So, but I started buying more games, and then I asked her what kind of games would she like to play. So you know, we had games for science, games for history, games for English, games for math, games for geography. Every single subject that, you know, that you would want your child to learn, we would play games. And I have so many games still, and she will not let me sell or get rid of a lot of these games because we played them for so. I mean, there would be months and months that is all we would do would be play games, and that was okay. That was her way of learning, and that's another thing. When you, I wish I could number the different, you know, things that we did, like, you know, here, this we do, we can do this or do that, but um the way I observed, the way that she learned, my child loves to learn, and while she's learning, she likes having fun. She tends to keep what she learned longer when it's in an environment where we're having a lot of fun. If it's not fun for her to learn it, she doesn't really want to learn it, you know. But if it's fun, like, if, like, say, science was not her best, well, science was not a subject that she really cared for. So we started playing games for science, and we started using graphic novels, or that taught science. You would not believe what they have in the library. So during that deschooling time, you know, I let her read. She read a lot of comic books. She read a lot of graphic novels. Um, we went to the library a lot, and we went to different museums because she was into art. I found classes at Joanne's that she's very creative. So she was creative. She wanted to create. She loves to bake. She loves to cook. She loves to sew. And I made sure that I found classes, or I showed her where she could go on YouTube for videos on sewing, on cooking. Joanne's had classes on cooking and sewing, and Michael's had fine arts classes. And you know, this was way before COVID. But that's something that you can do now. I'm sure different things are opening up. Is during that deschooling period, I observed I observed her, and I found out all the different things that she liked, all about her interests. And so I would ask her, "Are you interested in this and interested in that? You know, I know there's some classes at Joanne's if you want to be, if you'd like to go." You know, I wouldn't. I did have that problem of um, as I became a master facilitator, so I would just go, and I would just um, go get this and go get that, and, you know, and then I would be kind of hurt when my daughter wasn't interested in it. But that was on me because I didn't really ask her. That was just me assuming that she would like it. Um, so it really helps when you sit and you talk to your child and ask them, you know, what what about your interest that you like. You know, like, she liked cooking. I'm like, well, would you like a recipe book, or would you like to make a recipe book? um you know, would you like classes in cooking? I found a chef that taught homeschoolers. So either she was, you know, that took care of the social, and that also took care of her learning about interests that she had. I found uh, professional artists, some that had studios that were that would teach art to homeschoolers. You know, Zoe learned about drawing still life. She learned about painting. through that way through an artist, and I had her own studio. Um, it's just there's just so many professionals out there that if your child has an interest, they would be willing to teach them or talk to them about what they're interested in. So, oh gosh, there's so many different things that you can do during deschooling. I know I found other homeschool moms in the process of deschooling when I was going through it to talk to. And then I also talked to a lot of moms or families that had been there, done that, like talking to people like Karima or Robin or me, that helped to know that I was not going through this alone. So, um, this is really odd, Karima, because it's hard for me to talk, and I can only see so many people. This is not something I'm used to feedback. I'm used to people talking to me as I'm talking. Okay.
Okay, so how about this? And I understand my audio may be a little low, so I'm going to project my voice to make sure that everyone can hear me. So if you have a question for Tyra, put it in the chat, and we would love to spotlight you so that you can ask Tyra your deschooling question. You know, deschooling can be this really odd thing. It can be scary. You heard Tyra say she went in her room and she shut the door because she didn't want to see it happening, right? And so, if you have a question about deschooling, how do you start? What do you do? Put it in the chat, and then we'll go ahead and bring you up, and then you can ask your question. So, Tyra, first of all, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So if I'm yelling a little bit, it's to make sure that my sound is good. So I apologize if you need to turn me down a little bit. So Tyra, look, here's a question, that good old Robin. Robin says, did your daughter have a long deschooling journey?
uh no, I did. Once my daughter found out all the things that I was, once I talked to her about deschooling, or well, when I told her what I was going to do, she, when I told her that day that you can go and do and learn whatever you wanted, at that time, she told me school didn't exist for her anymore. That quick. I wish it would have happened like that for me, but it did not. She was ready to let it go. She had already let it go when we were homeschooling. And that's why I think we had it was so hard, because once she left public school, school didn't exist for her anymore. But when we bought it home, she was like, okay, I left school, but now I got to be at home with it too. That's why it was horrible those first couple of years. Absolutely horrible. And so, I had to let go. She had already let go. So I don't even, so we didn't need a deschooling process. I think she was deschooling herself when she was in public school, to be honest. She was like, yeah, because she was pulling so far away from public school while she was in it. It was like, you can look in the dictionary and there's Zoe's face for unschooling. She is the unschooling face because it was meant for her. And that's what a lot of people don't kind of get confused about, is that deschooling, it may not lead to unschooling. I needed to deschool from traditional as well as public school. There's some people who, need that will, deschool and have a deschooling period, but that doesn't mean you pick unschooling. You can pick another way, or you can be eclectic, where you have some unschooling days, and maybe you do have maybe Charlotte May. I mean, so it's just whatever it works for your child, and
Mm-hmm.
unschooling worked for Zoe.
Mm-hmm. The
You
thing
know,
that a lot of the thing that I ask parents and teachers and children to consider is deschooling, like Robin broke it down for us earlier today. It is the deconstruction of what traditional school is. So it's the breaking down of another person's expectation over how you should learn, when you should learn, and what you should learn. So it's getting rid of that. And so if you have a mindset full of another person's expectation for how you should learn, how children should learn, or even your own expectation for
Mm-hmm.
how children should learn, it is the deconstruction of that. It is the
Mm-hmm.
getting that out of your head. It is the process of taking that stuff off the hook and taking it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, because at the end of that journey, that's where we are, at a place of nothing. And what we're getting rid of is another person's expectation for what learning and school should look like. Do we realize that somebody made it up? That's the thing. Somebody made it up. The problem is, none of us were alive to see what it looked like before they made up compulsory school.
Mm-hmm.
None of us here were alive to see it. So we were born into, this is what school looks like. You get up in the morning, right? And you go to this place and you do these subjects, you do them this way. Or if you're like me, you wake up your children, you dress them in uniforms to come down to your dining room table where you do school around the dining room table. And school still looks this way. Math starts at this time, English starts at this time. You have to follow this curriculum, which is simply a guide that someone else wrote. That's all. Someone else made up this idea. And so deschooling, and I see your comment in the chat, Allison, deschooling is getting rid of that. Getting rid of it to the place where there is nothing. And then from nothing, the learner is able then to speak authentically as to what learning means for them. So Allison says, also to know that your homeschool journey is uniquely yours as well. Don't compare others' journeys to yours. Comparison is the greatest thief to joy. Yeah. So Tyra, tell me, we've had talks like this a lot. Looking back, because your daughter has now graduated.
Mm-hmm.
So looking back, go back to where you were when you were in the room and you were shutting the door because you couldn't stand to see the freedom, right? There may be mamas and papas and kids and teachers and parents right now listening to you, and they're at that place where they want this thing, they want this freedom, they want this joy, they want this this autonomy that they see as possible, but they have this thing that they're holding on to. Talk to that mom, that dad, they desire something that they think that deschooling will make available to them, but they're still afraid and they're still holding on to this thing. Go ahead and talk to those parents.
And I love Karima, but she's always focuses on me hiding in my room.
This is so funny.
That was that was not a good time, Karima. I was I was hiding because I'm speaking to the parents who are at that point. Because when I look back at what I know now, it's going to be okay. And for me as a grown person to want to hide what I wanted to hide because I didn't want to see this unique individual be unique. And so that doesn't make sense. And so I tell that parent that was like me, because I was like that. It's hard to get over fear, Karima. It is. It's very hard to get over a fear, especially of this conditioning that you've had since you were from birth. It's hard to let that go. I was very much into school. I went to several colleges, and I went to school to be a teacher. So that's all I knew. And that's all that I knew to be what everybody expected. And so for me, when I was sitting there being afraid to see my child enjoy life, I had to ask myself, is this the kind of parent I wanted to be for my daughter? What kind of parent hides themselves from seeing their child happy? That makes no sense. So I had to let that go. You know what? I let that go. That was a big major thing. When I'm really thinking about it, that was a huge thing that I let go at that time because I still had fears along the way. But that one was huge because then I had the courage. It sounds so silly. Then I had the courage to actually see it, to actually join in on it. And I enjoyed it. I loved being an unschooling mom. I loved being on that journey with my daughter. And that's what I would tell them is that you're going to enjoy it. I enjoyed it. And then I got upset with myself for wanting to hide from it because I enjoyed it. It was fun. I learned a lot. And my daughter and our relationship became really close. Um, I learned a lot about her. She learned about me. Um, Everybody in the house, it just was an amazing thing that happened to our family once I started letting go. And that's one thing that families have to understand. It's not just the kid or it's not just you, it's everybody in the house has to accept this change. And once that happened, boy, it was just been amazing. Like I say, deschooling changed our life because once I saw that shift from deschooling to unschooling, because unschooling became our lifestyle. Deschooling you know, was the process we had to go to get to that lifestyle change. And so when I tell parents, if you gotta hide from seeing that, just know that it's gonna be okay. And it is so rewarding. I always tell people, I wish I would have unschooled my child from birth. From birth. Because it's such a wonderful thing. Um
So
but-
I have one of those kids. Out of my six, my youngest one was unschooled from birth. And what I mean by that is we were traditionally homeschooling at home, right? The older ones, which meant that I was following a curriculum. Y'all heard me say I was dressing them in uniforms to come to the dining room table. I know. And we were following the curriculum very strictly. I was recreating school at home to the point where when we fell behind in the curriculum, I was completely stressed because I felt that we were failing. And so for us, it was while we were very academically successful, we had all of the workbooks, all of the tests and quizzes. We were doing classical education. So we had a ton of the Latin and the rhetoric and all of that. Inside, as people, we were miserable. There was no joy, no curiosity, no passion, no independence. There was no trust. I did not trust my children. I did not trust that if I didn't force them to learn something, force them to sit down and do something, that I didn't trust that they would. And so we hit a point of a breaking point. For me, it was this lump in my throat that would not go away because I was just so concerned about getting it right and having these perfect kids, and that the perfect curriculum would then give me the perfect kid. And we know that there is no such thing as the perfect curriculum, and there's sure ain't no such thing as the perfect kid. And so when that hit that point, that's when I said something's got to give. And so you've heard me say, I said, all right, I looked over the homeschool landscape and I found these people way in the back. The parents seemed to be chilling, right? The kids were self-motivated. They were doing all these projects, whatever they love to do. And I was like, oh, I want that. Then I saw that they were unschoolers and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Mm-mm. That's that thing I said I would never do. That's irresponsible parenting. Who's gonna let your kid tell you what they ain't gonna do? Not I, said the fly. And so I tried to say no, but I could not stay where I was. And so you've heard me tell the story. I gave the kids freedom after lunch. They could be free after lunch. In the morning, they sat down and I said, it's time for y'all to do this school thing. After lunch, you get to be free. And it wasn't until those jokers woke up one morning and started being free before breakfast. And that's when I saw that this is true learning. And I would be interrupting true learning only for the sake of teaching. So this is the time for question and answer. We're about to wrap up this segment with Tyra because we have our last speakers for the day about to start at around 2:30. And so if you have a question, put it in the chat. Let me read what's up. Sue and Allison and Robin have been blowing it up in the chat. There's a conversation in the chat about conformity equaling success. You're right. We do have to redefine what success means. And if you're in that conversation, hang around because that's exactly what Iris is about to talk about in a few minutes. And if that ain't enough, come back tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern because that's when Stacy's going to talk about it again. How do we define success? That's part of the issue, right? If we see our children doing something, pursuing an interest, but we do not value that interest, then are we likely to say that our children are successful? And so tomorrow, you're also going to hear from some adult unschoolers. You're going to hear from Zoe, Tyra's daughter. You're going to hear from Sunday, my daughter. And you're going to hear from my friend, Miss Summer Jean Campbell, all of them adult unschoolers. So are there any more questions about deschooling? If you have another question, pop it in the chat. I want to wrap up and close. Go ahead, Tyra. Go ahead.
No, well, I wanted to say was something that you said. It was about trust. That was because you're right. I get that a lot that, I don't trust my child outside of my eyesight, but and I said this before, once I gave my daughter that trust, once I trusted her to do what's right for herself, she became very trustworthy. It was like she said, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And she did it. And I knew she was going to do what she said. And so with that trust, I had confidence in her. I supported her 100%. So that made her not only trustworthy, but confident within herself of knowing what she wanted and what she wanted to pursue to get the knowledge that she needed. And you're right. Her success and how she got it was not how I envisioned her to be a successful person. She envisioned her own self to be successful. And so she, along her path, she has Zoe to thank for. Zoe, because it's her path, not mine. Yes, I was there to guide. I was there to help her get whatever she needed. And she is very thankful for that. She tells people that if it wasn't for my mom and dad's support, I would not be the artist that I am or the person that I am, because we trusted her enough to get what she needed. And I saw her success through her eyes. And she's not done still, she still sees herself on that path to what she wants to do. And she's still doing it. Because, while I was watching TV and they asked a bunch of adults now in their 20s, where do you see yourselves in 10 years? And they said, some didn't know. Some were like, well, they were unsure. I asked that to Zoe. I said, Zoe, where do you see yourself in 10 years? Oh, what I'm doing now. She's already seen it and she's already working. She said, what I'm doing now. I'll probably do a little bit more stuff, but what I'm doing now is what I'll be doing in 10 years, just better. So I believe on this unschooling journey and on the deschooling journey to unschooling is that Zoe found herself because she was, I gave that freedom to her. So she learned about who she was. So when you're that parent that sits in your room being afraid to look at your child, enjoying freedom, just know that on that other side, there are going to be these awesome adults that you never thought that they could be. I never seen it. I never seen a child have that much freedom in learning ever. And my husband either. He was like, he was like, I've learned from Zoe. I've learned from Zoe. I've never seen a child, and there are so many, Karima, all kind of, Robin, Sue, they were witnessing their children on that path. And I was too afraid of that path because that's just me and being afraid. But once I saw my daughter on that path, I trusted Sue and Karima and Carla and all of them that I followed, because now I was like, oh, now I get it. Now I see it. Because, a lot of people you can talk to them about all kind of ways to do this and that, but until they're in it, they can't see it. So I just want to thank you, Karima, and thank you, Sue, because I followed you both and you didn't even know me. Karima, I think you might have knew me, but Sue didn't. So thank you.
Oh, Tira, you are so welcome. And thank you. Thank you for who you are. You are a constant voice in the world of deschooling, a constant encouragement for families. And so, for the sake of the recording, I'm going to end it right there. If you are on Facebook, follow Tira. Tira, do you have a Facebook group for game schooling? I got you. Hold on. We're going to unmute you.
Yeah, I can't do several things at once.
There you go. Go ahead.
It's not me.
How can people contact you, Tira?
Okay. You can email me. That's the best way to contact me. I'll put my email. That's the best way.
And can you put your email in the chat so that people can reach you?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you. So listen, you're not going to want to miss what's coming up next. Up next, we have, hold on, let me stop recording.